Hello YouTube, my name is Tyler. This is a reading vlog. I am on my walking pad. It is October 10th. Last night, before I went to bed, I finished reading Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. I have been reading this for like 300 billion years, it feels like. It was such a short book, but as I talked about in my last video, my ability to focus on the written word lately has just been completely shot. So it took me forever to read this. However, I did finally finish it. And I had thoughts and feelings, so I ended up writing a review on Goodreads since I was already in bed and I knew I wasn't gonna get out of bed to write a review. So I'll read that and then I'll see if there's anything left that I need to say about it. I gave it 4 stars. I said, I don't know if this was a 3.5 star or a true 4-star read, but I do know that Moshfegh can write a book about a miserable, fucked up woman that I get invested in immediately. So I still haven't decided if it's 3.5 or a 4, but it doesn't really matter because it's gonna get counted and tracked as a 4-star either way. I feel like the plot description ruins this book and sets it up to be a story it's not. This is a book about existing in Eileen's life for a week. She lives in a boring little nothing town. She's unfulfilled and unhappy. Her life will change by the end of the book, but you have to enjoy just being in Eileen's head because this is not a fast-paced, thrilling read. If you did not like my year of rest and relaxation, I cannot see any way you would enjoy this. Again, yeah, if you have not enjoyed Ottessa's writing in the past, I don't think this is going to change your mind. I feel like the plot description really sets it up to be a different type of book. I feel like it gives away way too much information. I mean, it practically gives away like what I would consider to be like the big reveal and climax of the story in the plot description. I think it's the last 50 pages something happens and like that bit of information is in the plot description. It makes it seem like it's going to happen sooner in the book and the book is going to be dealing with that plot point, and that's just not what this book is about. I didn't read the plot description before going into this, and I'm so grateful because that specific event, that reveal, that plot point, whatever you want to call it, really shook me. Like I literally gasped. I was not expecting it at all. I would read like the first paragraph of the plot description and nothing else. I mean, it's like 4 paragraphs of plot description and the book is under 300 pages. And like if you have read any of Ottessa's work in the past, you know they're not like very plot oriented or plot dense. Like it's very much like you are in a character's head and what they're thinking about is like what you're reading. It's not, I don't know, her writing has never been very plot dense. So like, I don't know who wrote this plot description and why they gave so much of the plot away. I don't know, it seemed like a poor decision to me. So yeah, I would just read that first paragraph if you're wanting like a more specific plot description than what I just gave. Anyways, I have a little bit more. The things that have me considering a 3.5 rating are: 1, I found the end to be almost a little too nice for what I expect from Moshfegh, but I didn't hate it. Again, yeah, honestly, the whole end chapter I probably could have just done without. However, I feel like I say that with a lot of books. Like, I guess I just like my books to end on a cliffhanger. I don't like things being tied up, I suppose. And like, there is a lot of loose ends still at the end of this. It is still an Ottessa Moshfegh book, so like, it's not super tied up with a bow or anything, but yeah, I don't know. I just didn't totally love it, but like, it was fine. And then the second one is the sexual abuse component. While it was not a large part of the story in terms of length of time that you're like reading about it, it felt a little gratuitous. I expect to read gross things from Moshfegh. If you have ever wondered about a character's bowel movements in your fiction, this is the author for you. But this particular reveal or plot point felt like a bit too much. I felt like it was shoved in for shock value instead of adding to the story, which made me a bit uncomfortable. Which, yeah, there was a sexual abuse component in, I don't know, like the back half of the book. And like, it's kind of important to the story being told, but it just felt a bit too over the top. It didn't feel like it needed to be as extreme as it ended up being. And like I said, there's not a ton of time spent with it. So yeah, reading this made me realize, I think, why, what did I just read by Otessa Moshfegh recently? Lapvona. The reason I don't think Lapvona worked for me was there were too many characters. I feel like Otessa Moshfegh really excels in, like I said earlier, a miserable fucked up woman. Like, getting into a singular person's head and understanding their thought processes. Maybe not understanding, but like, I don't know, just like living in a person's head. Like, the way she does that is just so excellent for me, and I get why some people would not enjoy that or like connect with that, but it's something I really enjoy, and I think she does really well. And Lapvona jumped around between too many characters, and so I never got that like lived in feeling with any of these characters. I never connected fully with any of the characters, so like I never felt invested. So that's my thoughts on Eileen. I hope I will finish other things this week. I think I should finish at least an audiobook this week that I'm enjoying quite a bit. But otherwise, my battery's about to die, so I'm just gonna cut it off here. I will talk to y'all later. Bye. Hello. It is October 11th, and I just finished listening to City of Nightmares by Rebecca Schaeffer. I gave this 4 stars. I had such a fun time listening to this. So, this is a YA fantasy book novel. I definitely got this recommended through a booktuber, and I want to say it's Elliot, Brooks, I believe is her name, maybe. I'm pretty sure this is where I got the recommendation from, but I'm not 100% sure. This is a universe in which nightmares turn people into monsters. So people don't dream, and if they do dream, it's a nightmare, and then it turns them into their nightmare. And this book is following Ness, who is like very afraid of becoming a nightmare and nightmares in general, because her sister turned into a giant spider and killed their father. So she's very, very afraid. And she is part of sort of like a religious culty group that help people navigate this nightmare world, but also the city she lives in is very like crime ridden, not necessarily connected to nightmares, but not disconnected. Like, it's just a lot of crime in general, both nightmare and not nightmare. And then eventually gets to this point where she kind of fucks up and she ends up having to do a certain task and ends up on a boat that explodes. And then she has to kind of befriend one of her biggest fears, a nightmare. And it just, I don't know, it was just a lot of fun. I found the like nightmare system of magic. It's not really magic, but I found that to be intriguing. I liked both Ness and Sai, who is the like vampire nightmare that she becomes friends with. I found both those characters to be interesting, but it definitely was YA. Every character had to have their race mentioned first thing, which like isn't something typically I would be annoyed by, but the way it was done was just irritating. Like, there's better ways to like racially identify your characters instead of just saying first sentence about a character being their race. There was also a little bit of like the very like hand-holdy moralizing that I find to be in YA. And I don't mean that moralizing in a negative way, but like walking you to holding your hand to the moral it's trying to give you. So that was definitely in here. But I did find the writing of Ness's anxiety to be very, very good. The way her thoughts worked was very familiar and felt very realistic to me as a person who does have anxiety. My anxieties are very thought spirally. And I felt like that was captured really, really well in this book. I feel like it could have been very annoying to read, and it might be annoying to some people, but it felt very authentic to my feelings of anxiety. It felt real, even if sometimes I felt like I was being hit over the head with like not therapy speak necessarily, but like, you don't need to worry about your anxieties. Like, I felt like some of that was like a little over the top, but I get that this is YA. So like, it makes sense that those things are a little more cartoony or exaggerated for younger readers. Anyways, I don't know. I had a really good, fun time reading it. I plan on listening to book 2. However, none of my libraries have the audiobook yet, so I will wait for the audiobook to become available. I don't want to like switch from audio to reading it. Although I can't imagine it would be difficult to read, but I liked listening to it. Yeah, I had a good time with it. Hello, it is October 12th, and I just finished reading / listening to Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I gave it 3 stars. I did enjoy it, but there wasn't anything that like I just absolutely loved. Victor and his monster honestly were made for each other. These 2 dudes are just like so emo and so whiny, and if they had stopped fighting, maybe they could have bonded. Anyways, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I enjoyed it more than Dracula, but I also didn't try and read this prolonged over the course of 7 months. So yeah, but otherwise I'm glad to finally be making some progress finishing up stuff that I've been reading for 300 years, it feels like. Yeah, this is a really short check-in. Don't really have a whole lot else to say. Oh goodness. So I will see y'all later. Bye. Greetings. It is October 14th. It is the last day of this vlog, and I finished a book. I finished listening to I Keep My Exoskeletons to Myself by Melissa Crane? Marissa, not Melissa. Marissa Crane. I'm gonna give this 2 stars. I really did not like this very much. If I had been reading it physically, I probably would have DNF'd it. But I was listening to it and I liked the narrator enough that it was okay to keep listening as I was going about my day. I'm not exactly sure where I got this recommendation from. It's a very queer book, and I feel like maybe I might have gotten it as like a suggestion for like a Pride read. I know kind of leading up to June and through June, I kind of was looking at a list of like queer books you should read during Pride. And I think that might have been where I got this recommendation from. Not someone specific. I was expecting it to be a little more sci-fi. Let me go ahead and read some of the like plot description to you. So the first paragraph is, in the United States, not so unlike our own, the Department of Balance has adopted a radical new form of law enforcement. Rather than incarceration, wrongdoers are given a second and sometimes third, fourth, and fifth shadow as a reminder of their crime and a warning to those they encounter. Within the department, corruption and prejudice run rampant. giving rise to an underclass of so-called shadesters who are disenfranchised, publicly shamed, and deprived of civil rights protections. So that sounds awesome. Incredible read. Lots of things to unpack in that I would enjoy. I enjoy reading and thinking about incarceration. I love a sci-fi sort of dystopian setting world. So yeah, that sounded interesting. I should have read more of the plot description because then it gets into the main character is Chris. She's a shadester and a new mother to a baby born with a second shadow of her own, grieving the loss of her wife and thoroughly unprepared for the realities of raising a child alone. Chris teeters on the edge of collapsing, fumbling in a daze of alcohol, shame, and self-loathing. Yet as the kid grows, Chris finds her footing, raising a child whose irrepressible spark cannot be dampened by the harsh realities of the world. So, yeah, one of the issues I had is this is definitely a motherhood story. It's not the only thing going on in here, but especially in the beginning, a very big part of it is Chris trying to come to terms with being a mother, her wife dying, and how she's going to raise this kid that she wasn't necessarily opposed to having children, but it was very much a thing that her wife brought into their relationship. Her wife always wanted to be a mother. And so if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that is not something, I don't like parenthood narratives. I just don't. It's just not interesting to me. The other thing that I did not know going into this, there's conversations around kink that is strangely one of the not biggest plot points, but it's fairly present throughout this book. So there is a lot of sex. I mean, it's not a smut book. There is more sex than I had anticipated. And Chris is kind of into BDSM, and she has to at one point introduces her wife to the idea of maybe introducing it into their sex life, and y'all know if you've watched any other video of mine, I do not like sex in books. It's just not enjoyable for me to read. I've said it once, I've said it twice, I'll say it again and again and again. I do not enjoy listening to sex. I really do not like listening to it in audiobooks. It makes me so uncomfortable. So yeah, that's two big things that just made this book not for me. And to be quite honest, this dystopian world is really not that important. It does not really deal with incarceration and things of that nature on a really deep level. I wanted to go more into that societal world side of things, whereas this is very much about Chris, her relationship with her daughter, her relationship with people in her life, her grieving her wife. It's very much about that family and Chris, and not so much a dystopian sci-fi looking at society. There's a little bit of that, but that is by far not the driving force of this book. So it's my fault. I didn't read the full plot description. We've been here before, folks. I don't read the plot descriptions. So there's that. Also, I don't understand the incessant usage of pop quizzes through this entire book. It's just constant, pop quiz, question, yada yada, some philosophical question. And then maybe an answer, some multiple choice or something. And then there was a big one at the end of the book that I thought was supposed to be tying stuff together, and I just don't get it. I don't get why there were pop quizzes throughout this book. It did not make sense because so much of it is it's from Chris's POV, and it's talking to her dead wife basically and how she misses her, and this is what happened with the kid, as she's called through most of the book, what's happening with the kid in life and how the kid is acting and how relationships are and how much she misses her. And so I don't get the purpose of the pop quizzes, and it was actually incredibly irritating. It really truly was annoying. I didn't get it. It's told in like a more lyrical, like vignette style, and it's not like necessarily a straightforward plot. It's not like overly complex, but it just was not what I was expecting when I picked it up. And you know, it is what it is. People seem to love it though, so like I could see how it works for people. I think, you know, there are people that enjoy those grief narratives. I'm sure there are people that enjoy like realistic sex stories, because this is a real part of people's lives. So I'm sure there are people that enjoy that, just like how I enjoy Ottessa Moshfegh's stuff, because I find it realistic and real how she writes her characters in her worlds. Like that feels real to me, even if it's like extreme in some cases. So I'm sure there are people where this feels real and authentic and important, and it's good that it exists. It's just not for me. Like it's not the book for me. Anyways, so that's the 4th book I read this week, which is a profound difference from the last 2 weeks, I think. I think I read 1 book each of those last 2 weeks. So yeah, finally picking up steam, 4 books. So let's talk about what I'm still carrying over. Obviously, still working on Columbine. I have like 150-ish pages left, so probably won't finish it next week, although it's not impossible. Probably not though. But the 3rd week vlog seems likely. I'm working on a Yowamushi Petal. I finally started a new one. And then I am also reading The Lake of Dead Languages by Carol Goodman. This is, I don't know if I would call it dark academia, but it is like a private school for girls, wayward girls, and it's following like a Latin teacher who went to this school in her youth, and there was some suicides, and there's like some, not spooky, it's not paranormal, but there's like just a general vibe of like dread, I guess. There might be something mysterious going on. I don't fully know. I'm only like, I think 30 pages in, but I am enjoying the vibe. It's working for me. It's a little bit like secret history. It's a little bit, there was something else that it kind of reminded me of, and I can't pull it right now. Anyways, so yeah, those are the things I'm working on. I'm still waiting for Immortal Longings to recheck out to me, but otherwise, that's really all I'm working on. So I'll see y'all next week. Bye!